to close.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to thank my good friend and colleague, Senator Pizzo, for the tool. It's very helpful, and I ask for your favorable support on this bill.
Thank you very much, Senator Simon. The Secretary will unlock the board and senators will proceed to vote. Have all senators voted? Lock the board, please, and record the vote.
36 yeas, 0 nays, Mr. President.
The bill passes. Read the next bill.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 1134, a bill to be entitled "A Natural End to Official Actions of Local Governments."
Senator the Fourth, Senator Yarborough, you're recognized to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President and Senators, I filed Senate Bill 1134 because as I have reviewed expenditures and mandatory practices in several counties and cities across our state, it has been alarming to discover some of the items that are being funded with Florida taxpayer dollars under the guise of the approximately 10-year-old effort commonly referred to as DEI. Before I provide some examples, let me state plainly that there is absolutely nothing wrong with the term diversity, the term equity, and the term inclusion. These are positive terms that have been around for a long period of time. The problem, again, that we are facing is the manipulation of those terms, or hijacking of those terms, if you will, into the more recent DEI effort that regrettably misrepresents the terms and is being used to cloak expenditures and practices that need to be brought to light. Here are a few examples with regard to expenditures and mandatory practices. The City of Jacksonville has given and continues today to give thousands of public taxpayer dollars to an organization that has been exposed in the news for distributing explicit playing cards to children that depict the names and graphic images of body parts. Giving credit where it is due, our past Democratic school superintendent canceled a contract the school system had with the organization, but it is concerning that the city is still providing taxpayer funding. Also in Jacksonville, the city has given up to $500,000 to the Jacksonville Symphony, and as a side note, I very much enjoy our symphony. I enjoyed it over the holidays with my family, which boasts of being featured as a, quote, case study for DEI. The organization made a single executive responsible for DEI in education, but subsequently changed the position's title. In fiscal year 24-25, the City of Orlando required all grant applicants to submit DEI statements. Hillsborough County paid $572,000 for an external contract that included training that taught staff from several departments that prejudice is outside their control when it comes to race, ethnicity, and gender. Senators, this promotes division, not equity. Broward County has spent almost $900,000 on DEI training, which includes pushing the, quote, genderbread person concept and graphic to promote gender ideology as recent as last year. And for the $2.8 million in annual cultural grant spending in Broward County, the county's Cultural Division Organizations Grants Manual indicates that cultural grants are awarded on the basis of DEI criteria and that the county makes intentional effort to give money to DEI-oriented programs. In Pinellas County, staff face mandatory participation in DEI trainings on the subject of pronouns. Alachua County held a multi-day training program with an aggressive effort indicating that traits such as objectivity, sense of urgency, professional credentials, being on time, and making progress are negative characteristics, and they are specifically ascribed to, quote, white culture. The City of Gainesville mandated training for its fleet management department in which staff were required to share their gender, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, disability status, and even their body size identities. Staff were forced to make acknowledgments, and the city's position on the training was that staff would offer no pushback because they were, quote, scared of termination. Senators, this promotes division, not equity. To make matters worse, the City of Gainesville mandatory training included a wheel of power and privilege and offensively suggests that Caucasian individuals are always slim, able-bodied, rich, and have little to no mental health concerns, while unbelievably putting forward the outrageous notion that all other groups are lacking in abilities, poor, are large in body size, have disabilities, and may not have much education. Senators, I don't even know how to adequately respond to that one, and certainly you can't justify it, particularly as even the makeup of our Senate and many other bodies, groups, and organizations in Florida prove that this is absolutely not the case. And again, these issues promote division and not equity. If counties and cities, here's the reason for the bill, if counties and cities were not taking official actions to fund and promote these kind of things, and these are just a few examples, by the way, the bill would not be necessary, but we represent the same constituents, and have an obligation to uphold the standards of transparency and accountability. That's what the bill is about. The bill prohibits counties and municipalities from funding, promoting, or taking official actions related to DEI activities like the ones I mentioned, and also establishes penalties for violations. It does not prohibit official actions that are in accordance with state or federal law. The bill also includes a number of exceptions based on considerable amount of feedback I have been receiving from you and from the public. And I will mention specifically, since the version of this bill was filed last year and then filed again this year and then coming to today on the floor, I wanted to mention Senator Jones, President Pasadomo, Senator Leak, Senators Sharif, Smith, Berman, Polsky, Garcia, Calatayud, Rodriguez, and Davis have all had multiple personal conversations with me, and their input has all been considered with what we have today. And I thank them for their diligence on this matter. It's very important. While I understand some senators will not be inclined to support the measure, even with changes, we have worked diligently to incorporate a number of the suggested changes to bridge the gap and address as many concerns as possible. Decisions, here's the bottom line, decisions related to individuals and actions should be based on merit, and if we have officials in local government, whether it be elected officials, the procurement director, the HR manager, or anyone else, if they are not basing their decisions on merit, which hopefully you would agree levels the playing field, they need to be replaced. Taxpayer dollars should not be used to promote inappropriate activities, especially for children, and for mandatory activities under the guise of a recent effort that seeks to distort the positive, true diversity, equity, and inclusion that we have known for a long time and that we have no problem with. Mr. President, that is the bill.
Are there amendments?
On the desk, Mr. President.
You bet there are. Please read the first amendment.
Amendment barcode 366604 by Senator Berman. Delete line 75 to 194 and insert amendment.
Leader Berman, you are recognized to explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, this amendment narrows the scope of the bill's broad preemption of local government activity to focus only on spending issues. If the legislature's goal is responsible stewardship of taxpayer dollars, consistent with Florida's government efficiency initiatives, the amendment accomplishes this objective directly. It limits the bill's reach to the expenditure of public funds while preserving local government's ability to engage in no-cost speech, outreach, and community engagements. This amendment protects fiscal accountability without infringing on local government's ability to communicate openness and inclusion to the communities that they serve. And that is the amendment.
Are there questions of the sponsor? Is there debate? Senator Yarborough in debate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Berman, thank you for your amendment, and I just wanted to opine on that. I would respectfully say it's unfriendly because it's not appropriate for local governments to promote discrimination and indoctrination with DEI concepts. It certainly isn't appropriate to promote DEI concepts financially via the appropriation of funds, but it isn't appropriate for local governments to promote DEI concepts in other ways, which could be practical, logistical, moral support, or anything like that either. Prohibiting only direct financial support, but not other forms of promotion, in my opinion, would undermine the purpose of the bill, and I would ask senators to reject the amendment.
Additional debate. Leader Berman to close.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think that is where we do have a philosophical difference on some of this bill. And I think that this is a reasonable way to allow governments to be close to their people, to interact with the people in their district so that they can support things like local parades, local events that, such as Jewish film festivals and other events without giving any financial support and not violating the provisions of this. This is a very vague law, and limiting it to the taking out the financial support will make this law clearer and will give the local governments more incentive and more clarity as to what they can do. And so I ask for your support on this amendment.
All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying yay. Yay. All those opposed, no. Show the amendment is not adopted. Please read the next amendment.
Late filed amendment barcode 255382 by Senator Polsky. Delete lines 88 to 204 and insert amendment.
Without objection, show the late filed amendment introduced. Senator Polsky, you are recognized to explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is very narrow and really important for our local officials. The bill currently subjects county and municipal officials to misfeasance or malfeasance penalties without requiring proof of intent or personal benefit. Under the bill's broad and undefined terms, officials could face severe consequences for good faith decisions or reasonable interpretations. This amendment clarifies that those penalties apply only when an official knowingly and intentionally breaks the law for personal financial gain. It preserves accountability for true corruption while protecting public servants acting in good faith. That is the amendment.
Are there questions of the sponsor? Senator Bracy Davis, and questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Can you explain why it is important that penalties for misfeasance or malfeasance be limited to cases where an official knowingly and intentionally violates the law for personal gain, and how this amendment protects local officials in good faith while still holding them accountable to true misconduct?
Senator Polsky.
Thank you for the question. Without a clear intent requirement, local officials face removal, litigation, or other penalties for reasonable policy decisions. By requiring proof of intent and personal benefit, this amendment draws a clear line between good faith governance and true wrongdoing, focusing accountability on actual corruption. It allows local officials to implement programs, manage contracts, and make policy decisions for their communities without fear of arbitrary or punitive enforcement, while still preserving accountability for intentional misconduct in office.
Additional questions? Senator Bracy Davis.
Thank you, Mr. President. How could the bill's current misfeasance and malfeasance provisions affect local officials' willingness to make policy decisions? And how does this amendment address that concern?
Senator Polsky.
Thank you for the question. The bill's current language could discourage local officials from taking necessary actions or supporting programs that benefit their communities out of fear of litigation or removal. This amendment removes that risk by limiting penalties to intentional self-dealing. It ensures officials can act confidently in the public interest while still holding them accountable for true wrongdoing.
Additional questions of the sponsor? Is there debate? Senator Yarborough in debate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Polsky, for the amendment. I understand the spirit of it, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you about some of this yesterday. Just to remind senators, the main thrust of the bill is not to prevent unlawful gain, but it is to prevent discrimination and indoctrination through the use of DEI concepts. The amendment would allow officials to remain in office even if they do violate the statute, so long as they don't realize the financial gain. This would undermine the purpose of the bill. Florida statutes already prohibit self-dealing by government officials. Perhaps stronger prohibitions against and penalties for self-dealing could be considered and enacted, but Senate Bill 1134 is not the appropriate vehicle, in my opinion, for those changes, and I would ask senators to reject the amendment.
Senator Polsky to close on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. As written, the bill exposes officials to severe consequences for any perceived violation, even when decisions are made in good faith. Terms like related to diversity, equity, inclusion are undefined and sweeping and create significant legal risk for reasonable judgment calls. Without intent or personal benefit requirements, local elected officials could face removal or litigation for carrying out their community's priorities. I think will also become obvious when we go through questioning on the underlying bill, that we don't know the answers to whether or not a particular event or program is legal under this future bill. There are so many questions. It is so vague. We had many local officials testify to how they don't even know how to go forward. We have heard from city attorneys who say, I don't know how to advise my clients because it is so vague. And there's so much on the line when it comes to a city official. And we have seen this administration take out well-meaning members of councils, of school boards, et cetera, because of his political